Hey everyone, Seth from Drone DJ here. I'm here with Scott, Ife, and George. We just saw the Mavic 3 launch. I think it was a surprise for a lot of people, the prices in particular, but also the incredible feature set. Obviously, there had been plenty of leaks, as per usual with DJI, but you know, the way they put it together was pretty interesting. You know, I think Ife was saying earlier that the script, could have used a little touch up, but the real star is the drone, the Mavic 3. It's pricey, but it's pretty crazy. Um, Scott, you had one. George, you had one, and I had a little bit of time with it. And I know Ife's really excited
You're
to,
expecting mine.
yeah, expecting yours and to talk about it. So let me hand it over to you, Scott.
Well, I was quite impressed. I have not had much time with it. Mine arrived on Tuesday evening, and I got out for a brief flight on Wednesday. What day is today? Thursday, I think. It's all been a bit of a blur. But so here's the drone. It comes with this weird thing that is kind of reminiscent of what we used to call a car bra back in the early 1980s. But it does it is better than fiddling around with the plastic gimbal clips that we've come to know with all the other Mavic lines. Unfolds the same as normal. I had it out for a couple of hours today flying, and to tell you the truth, I was really quite impressed with how it handles. The zoom is insane. I was looking on my hard drive tonight at some of the imaging quality, and I mean, it's very, very impressive. So I guess the real question is going to be the price, which we can get onto later. But initial impressions, if I set the price aside and just say, is this a cool drone? This is a really great drone, and there are really, really significant upgrades from the Mavic 2 line.
What do you think are like the biggest upgrades? I mean, obviously, flight time is gone from 31 minutes to 46 minutes. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean the flight time is one thing, and I mean it was kind of bizarre because I was flying in an area of Toronto where there's some nice scenic stuff, and had it up, and I was doing some rips in sports mode, and then just some really slow shots, and I realized I've been flying for well over half an hour, and I've still got 20-25% of my battery left. So that was one thing, and of course the camera. This Hasselblad that they've put a 4/3 CMOS sensor. They've managed to cram it into that little module. And the fact that it does have the zoom in the same module, and it's a hybrid zoom. It's 7 times optical, 4 times digital, but you wrap those all up together and you can get up to 28x. And that's pretty crazy. I mean, I've got a couple of shots in the story we just posted where I'm on a little patch of land. The drone is out hovering over the water. You can't see me at the beginning. And then slowly it gets closer and closer and closer until finally you can. Now, when you're at 28, of course, because there's the 4x digital factor, it starts to break up and look a little bit like that whole digital zoom thing. But still, it's very impressive.
Yeah, and George, I think when we were flying together, that was like one of the things that we were like, oh, this is kind of crazy. And Bruce did a story this week on the possible privacy implications from a cinematography standpoint. What are we going to be able to do with that zoom? Obviously, digital's not the best, but we do still have a 7 by optical.
Yeah, once you get to that 7 point, it's still we noticed we were sitting on a park bench. If you watch the video we put up, you can see us waving and we look like little blurbs, but then you zoomed all the way out and saw how far we actually were. It was kind of like, whoa, that's what 28 zoom looks like. I actually hadn't needed to use that before. But the 7x is going to give you the ability to just add another dimension to movement, right? Like we'll be able to pan while pulling out. We'll be able to like shift perspective in a way that was not more it wasn't doable at the quality you'd probably want to do it at. You're essentially getting like a dolly zoom on a budget. The ability to do that is really nice, which has existed in the Zoom 2 before, but it definitely felt like a level above. That was probably the 5.1K combined with that 7x optical. It definitely felt like a more than just like a nice added feature. It felt like something I'm going to want to use and exploit when possible, and really just help the production quality.
And I don't know if it's going to come via an update later, but I noticed that there's like a hop when you go from one camera to the other. Scott, did you also notice that? Or maybe that's something.
Yeah, what I was kind of looking for, and I couldn't quite tell actually, what I really wanted them to do within the app, and maybe this will come in a future upgrade, but I wanted them to kind of separate so that you could just know that you're working solely with the optical up to 7x, and then add the digital. Maybe that is the way that it's working, but you can't tell that by looking at the app. It simply goes like 2, 4, 7, I can't remember, and then I think 14 and 28. You do have the option of pinching to zoom. And I was a bit surprised, and I could be off base here, but I was kind of thinking that maybe this would be controlled by the DJI Go 4 app rather than the Fly app, because I'm not finding, at least at the moment, some of the deeper menus with more control over color profiles and other fine camera details that Aoife would probably know more about than I do, because she's a real camera head as well as a drone person. And so that made me wonder, like, are they gearing this really
supposed to come out with more software development, like more updates? It's typical DJI, right? They're gonna release the product and then they're gonna slowly release the updates.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, because there were a lot of features like granular control over the camera that I was looking for in there that simply are not there in this iteration of the app.
And speaking of that, did you do any of the follow stuff at all? Like, did you have a chance?
Oh, the master shots. Yeah, I was interested to see that too. Did you do any master shots?
So the master shots were not part of the software. Again, this is a perfect example. They were like, yeah, we don't have the software ready for that. It should be ready by the time people get it, but who knows? So we weren't even able to do any master shots, but the 8S 5 follow stuff is something I want to I'm really curious to see if DJI has made any headroom
not available
on
yet.
Yeah, so I'm really curious to see if DJI has made any headroom on its quest to catch Skydio. Skydio is so far ahead. This is like the one thing that DJI can't really beat Skydio on.
What's interesting is that we had briefings with DJI prior to the release of the product, and they showed some video clips of a guy on a mountain bike going through the woods, and the drone was doing like an excellent job. And this wasn't the woods with a giant open trail and the trees far away. It was literally weaving its way in between trees, and I thought, okay, that is something new, and that's something that DJI has not been able to really do in the past. So I think that hopefully once that feature is activated on the app, that will be something. And one of the other things to note is that the sensors, I'm not sure if they really mentioned it clearly in the presentation, but you can see on the previous Mavics, like you've got yours there, Seth, I think the two, but the sensors, yeah, are pointing straight forward, whereas on these, they're like on a 45-degree angle, so that they're basically capturing, a big swath on each side. And it's the same at the rear. So they're claiming that this has 360-degree obstacle avoidance, full 360, and that it can sense its environment from up to 200 meters away, that it starts painting its own internal mesh of what's going on around it. So I would think that we're going to get a lot better obstacle avoidance and tracking than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and that's always software updatable. I mean, theoretically, they could update the Mavic 2 with even better software.
Maybe get your DJI Care refresh before trying that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've tried on the Air 2 some. Yeah, I know, George, you mentioned you had done some rollerblading. I had done a mountain bike on a road, not like going through a woods, and it lost me. So
yeah,
we weren't super impressed with DJI's follow so far. Hopefully this next version gets it closer to Skydio, or maybe even as good as Skydio.
I was able to
tried it in
juke
some
it pretty
forested
easily.
areas too.
Sorry, Aoife, could you repeat?
Oh, I said that we tried it in some forested areas too. It was definitely compared to Skydio 2. You know, it couldn't keep the subject in tracking for as long as Skydio 2, but the one thing I did like was the movements. So when I did find the subject, the movement was more natural, was more cinematic versus Skydio was a little more abrupt. But Skydio was obviously keeping the subject better.
I'm going to jump in quickly just because I see a question here. Drone Mart has asked, I missed the price. How much is the drone without the Fly More kit? Well, the drone without the Fly More kit is $21.99 US and $29.99 for the Fly More combo. And if you're after the Cine model, it is $49.99. And if you were watching the DJI presentation, the people in the chat were like, oh my God, this thing looks so amazing. It's great. It's this, it's that. And the imagery that they showed, as always on a DJI production, looked like super top flight. But then when the price came out, people were like, what the heck? You're kidding. You're kidding. And the controller itself, their new smart controller, is going to be $11.99 with 1,000 nit display screen. But a lot of people were like, this is too much money.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely on the pro side of the prosumer spectrum. I mean, even the base model, which, you know, frankly is like almost the same hardware. I was kind of looking up and down the spec sheet. It's strange that the Cine version weighs like 4 grams more. Like what is different about the Cine?
The SSD.
Yeah, I guess it's
Maybe like that's it, right? Like
I wonder if it's just when they say SSD, I wonder if they just put in like a SD card, you know, like
They did say the Cine version. Actually, I wrote this down. They said the Cine version shoots Apple ProRes.
yeah.
But I don't think that's worth, you know, the price increase personally.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
such a big shift, for
Yeah.
price wise.
Yeah.
Like,
But so here's the interesting take. I mean, if you compare the even, you know, say you buy the base one and then you buy the controller, right? I'm comparing that to the Mavic 2 Dual Enterprise, because I've got a lot of corporate clients and public safety clients that they buy that because it's got the zoom and the regular camera. So I'm wondering, you know, if that's something those guys would consider upgrading to, and they can go with the regular app, right? Versus, you know, the enterprise one, you have to go with a pilot app, which is a little painful to use. So, and if you compare pricing, it's not that much of an increase.
Yeah, I was surprised that the controller is going to be $1,200. The old Pro controllers was like $700, and I think even dropped down to $500 at some, you know, on sale or something. So when you think about that, when you think about the Fly More at $2,000, or sorry, at $3,000, and then you add the controller and the backpack and the ProRes and the terabyte SSD, the price is starting to make a little bit more sense. You're already starting from a pretty high point, though. The Fly More has 3 batteries total. Those batteries must be quite expensive because you're going from $2,200 to $3,000, $800. Yeah, I mean they're most of the weight of the drone. Those are heavier than the Mavic 2 batteries significantly. Like I think 40 grams heavier.
That's the flight time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why you get the flight time. And George and I took out the battery, and like the body is like weighs nothing.
this
The
is
body
nothing.
is-
The battery itself is
Yeah, same today. I was stunned actually because I was walking around with the drone thinking, "Wow, this just feels good, right?" And I popped the battery, and it's like, "Holy smokes, this thing is so light! It's unbelievably light." But one of the things that is really interesting about this drone that DJI has not really tackled much in the past, and they kind of let it go by quickly in the presentation, but they've done wind tunnel testing, and I'm assuming computational fluid dynamics to make this a more aerodynamic drone. And I've been to international air shows where manufacturers of passenger jets, you know, hold news conferences because they've been able to make their body, you know, 1.5% more efficient or with 1.5% less drag, because that adds up to, you know, huge amounts of fuel savings over a year. This model, they have managed to produce, I think it was like a 35, I wrote it down,
35%.
drag reduction of 35%, which is
That was actually the
also,
most exciting spec to me during the whole presentation.
it's crazy. Like that is huge, you know? And I mean, it's everything about the way this is shaped, and it's even the actual camera module itself. So that's something cool. The other thing that was interesting in the presentation is that they mentioned a 4G dongle, so that you could in fact operate this over a cellular network, and you're really no longer restricted, even though it's got a 15-kilometer range with OcuSync 3. If you wanted to just do a one-way 30-kilometer trip, you'd in theory be able to do that. However, that dongle is not going to be available in North America at launch anyway. And that news came to us late today.
Last minute, yeah. And it's weird how they set it up. It's like a backpack, like you got like a 5G US. I don't know if the interface is USB, but it's just like you strap on a dongle to the back of the device, the drone, and it does look like an aftermarket kind of hacky thing. But I'm sure this is going to be part of drones going forward.
The way they phrased that in the presentation was super interesting and telling, to say where limitations allow, where it's possible. They were sure to state, this gives you the capability, but the use cases from it outside of professional are quite limited. So I'd be curious, what exactly that costs on top of the existing Cine package for whatever small production company wants to take that on.
Yeah, and I wonder also if DJI being on the U.S. entity list had any effect on, or any bearing on their decision not to go with the 5G, because theoretically you could launch a terrorist attack from a phone, over a network or whatever. Not that is any harder or easier than doing it the old-fashioned way with like a remote, but that's just like, obviously just speculation here. I don't know if that's a thing or not.
I think even just to allow it to tap into the network, like the cell phone tower network, is going to be challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Ife,
interesting.
Sorry, I'm just curious because Ife, you have worked in cinematography, and some of your clients are cinematographers. Do you think the Cine model is going to appeal to some of these folks, or do you think they would sooner go with a heavy lift and just choose their own camera?
What I heard mostly from DPs flying drones was they were disappointed that it's a 4/3. It's a really nice 4/3 CMOS sensor from Hasselblad, but no interchangeable lens. That was the biggest disappointment. They were all expecting this to be almost like Inspire 2. You have the 4/3 sensor, right? And you can have the interchangeable lens. And I was really hoping, since DJI hasn't upgraded the Inspire 2, they would release Mavic 3 with a Cine mode and essentially, replace the Inspire 2 with a smaller form factor that would be super attractive. But it's still a fixed lens on the 4/3 CMOS sensor. So
yeah, I think George, you were saying the same thing.
Especially after seeing the Ronin 4D come out, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. I thought that would be on the Mavic 3, or have a way of putting that on,
right? Put it in the air, and there's our Cine version. Like, to be
you
able to
would think that would be brilliant if they made that work.
Do you think that's like next up in the pipeline?
I don't know.
That's also heavier, right?
Maybe Mavic 4.
Yeah. Just getting the opportunity to like choose your glass is such a big factor. Mm-hmm. So to be like, okay, it's great that I can get ProRes, but I'm still using a fixed lens. I'm still not able to control that look as much. It still is gonna require other times where I need to get an actual camera in here. I'm not going to be able, as the DP, as the director, to rely on that matching. So for that certain level, you kind of still cross the threshold where you still need that same crew you needed beforehand. So it doesn't really solve that issue. I think I could see middle to lower end production companies using this as an opportunity to flex, to say, we have the more expensive one. We are able to, have the basic licensure and charge you a little more as our drone fee, but not necessarily replacing a proper drone aerial unit. It's not going to suddenly get rid of those times. It just kind of blurs the waters for the lower end productions that are kind of trying to do it, not necessarily the cheapest way, but if I'm agency, if I'm a lower level production
Cost
company,
effective.
it's something I can offer now that I couldn't offer before. Like now I can kind of spec sheet wise, I can kind of offer it a little more in a presentable way than I could before. So I'll be curious to see the next time I ask for a drone up in a certain market, if like, oh, we have the new one, that might be telling of what level of production I'm actually getting. I don't know yet. It's kind of like a new territory.
So I was kind of surprised that DJI didn't continue to sell, because now they don't really have a drone in the $1,000 to $2,000 range. I'm surprised they didn't continue to sell the Mavic 2. I mean, there's still some around, but I think stock is limited on those things, and they ran out for a while. So now you jump from the Air 2S, which is around $800, I think, or is it more?
I think it's $999.
Okay, so you have $1,000 drone and a $2,200 drone and nothing in between. That's kind of a big gap for DJI.
It is. I'm trying to think back. I was there when they launched the original Mavic Pro, and my recollection was that it was like $14.99. And at the time, of course, that was truly revolutionary. That was their first.
At the time, drones in general were a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
That's true. But, and I do have to wonder. I mean, I know DJI puts a ton of R&D. I mean, they've got, probably 15,000 employees by now. They had 14,000 a year and a half ago when I was given an official number. I was told at that time that more than half of those people are engineers. So you can put them to a task, and, engineers are pretty brilliant people, right? They can figure stuff out. But I do have to say, when I look at it, I think, yeah, a lot of thought, a lot of brain power has gone into the creation of this product. But then I look at it and I think, okay, well, at the end of the day, it's got 4 motors, it's got a redesigned body. Does it justify the price that we're seeing? And I guess consumers will be the ones who will ultimately determine that. I personally think it's a little bit overpriced.
Do you think there'll be like a Black Friday $2,000 sale?
Not this Black Friday. I would think. No, I would assume.
Never had the really huge holiday or Black Friday sales.
They have sales, but it's usually like on old stuff that they're trying to liquidate, and nothing.
I heard a whisper that DJI dropped the price, so I'm just gonna go on their website and see. One sec. Mavic 3, and I'm just checking out now. Where is the price drop?
Buy now.
I did see, when we first looked at it, they had the rumors the price was more like $5,400. So maybe it's just to get us stirred up.
Well, yeah, there was. We had I think the Chinese price, and if you do a direct comparison, a direct conversion, I think it ended up being more than 5,000. But
I'm not sure if it depends on your server detecting your location. On my end, they're still showing the same price as,
same
the release time. Yeah.
I have gone out on a limb a couple of times, including with the Air 2S. Before the Air 2S was released, there were leaks out there, including some legitimate literature from China that suggested the Air 2S would be compatible with the V2 goggles. At the time of release, it was not. DJI issued a statement saying, keep your ears out for future firmware updates. So I've stuck my neck out again before I ever had a briefing with DJI and said that it's my theory that this machine will be compatible, even if it's not compatible right now at launch, with the V2 goggles. Because in theory, we know that the DJI FPV, which is their only factory product that mates with the goggles, is running on OcuSync 3. This is OcuSync 3 Plus.
Plus.
So in theory, well, the Plus, I think, is an extra 5 kilometers and just a little more stability with bandwidth hopping. But, I do believe that this will be compatible with the goggles at some point. Probably, well, I don't know. I'm not going to predict. And I suspect that once that dies down at some point, they may well update the Air 2S, I believe, to make it also compatible, because it's in the interests of DJI to sell more goggles, right? It's a product. So, but I think it's also in DJI's interest not to cannibalize its own sales. So if this becomes kind of an exclusive feature that is available with this, and you got plenty of people out there who own the goggles now, that might be something that nudges them, despite the price, to say, yeah, I want to be able to stare down with my goggles and operate that drone. So we'll wait and see. I don't know anything for a fact, but it's my strong belief that will be the case.
I have a question, Scott. Have you checked the operating temperatures? And I know I think the wind limit is going to be higher, but what about operating temperatures? Because on Mavic 2, that was always the confusing part. It's the Mavic 2 without the smart controller, it's 0 to 40 Celsius, and then with the smart controller, it's -10. The Enterprise is -20. So I'm interested to see what's the Mavic 3's operating range.
I think, Seth, I don't know, you mentioned that you had popped up a spec sheet online. If you've got that handy, there was a big Excel sheet, and when I tried to print it out, it was so tiny that there's no way I'd be able to pop it up and read it. But it's a good question, you know.
So the operating temperature is actually the exact same. It's -10 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. So that's 14 to 104 for the heathen Americans. But 10 degrees, -10 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. And that doesn't change from the Mavic 2.
Because Mavic 2 with Mavic 2 with a regular controller, it's actually 0 to 40. So
interesting.
no
Can't go
exceptional
below some reason.
temperatures. And the only reason I know is because we're in Canada, and when we do the government flight exam, we really have to look at the operating temperatures. The people can't fly below the allowed temperatures. So yeah, so if Mavic 3 is from -10 to +40, then at least it's, Canadian friendly.
One of the interesting things, perhaps, for some of you, is that when DJI sends out these loaners, they actually register them with the FAA prior to sending them. So there's an FAA number, registration number there, and then I registered it in Canada so that I was flying legally. So that's the number there. But it's interesting. They want to make sure that everything is above board and that these products are registered, so that also if someone is flying it, and in the rare event there's a flyaway, which doesn't really seem to happen much with DJIs anymore, they've got a chance to track it and get it back to DJI.
A quick question from Dan Harper. Hey, George, since you have the Cine version, do you know if you can use a memory card in it and not just the 1 terabyte internal storage?
Oh yeah, you can.
So that you can go up to 2 terabytes.
We can get 2 terabytes going in this thing if that is something you require. Maybe with the 4K 120, once that update comes, we'll be needing that much room for a surfing session or something.
I wonder what the megabyte per second you need for.
It was listed. The max data rate was like 3.7 or something. But that was, again, for the 4K 120 at ProRes. A note on the ProRes is that it's funny that it's not funny, but it's only HQ. There's no ability to toggle which flavor of ProRes you're getting.
I wonder if that's going to come later, maybe.
LT, you can't get 422 like standard. I think it might just stay HQ, but I would be curious why they didn't have that option there.
I mean, it's possible that's one of the things that they're going to update. They just threw out the one that they
maybe, yeah.
Oh, so I've got a question here from Dan. Scott, how did you register it in Canada? Did they already have it on the list, or did you have to register it as a homemade RPAS? No, it was not on the list because it had not been released, but there is an option where you can actually just type in what the name of it is and drop it out that way. So that's how I did it. The one other thing that was not mentioned in any of the press materials, and I forgot to ask during the briefing, is I obviously I don't believe it is put into this drone, or they would have mentioned it, but in the United States there is a requirement for a remote ID module that I believe 2023, somewhere around there, fall of 2023 is the date when you must either have a drone that contains either a factory module or you add on a module that can, transmit information about the drone. So since there was no mention that there is a remote ID module in this, I would assume that there is not, and that you'll be looking a couple of years down the road at having to purchase some sort of add-on that will transmit that information.
Or it could be just not activated. That could be the case too.
That's true too. And actually on the Apple ProRes, George, when you were talking about that and wondering why the other flavors weren't there, part of me wondered, well, in the case of the Inspire 2, if you wanted to be able to activate using Apple
Buy the
ProRes,
license, right?
you had to spend $1,000 and buy the license before you could use the SSD that came with the drone. So perhaps, that's something down the road.
If we got ProRes Raw, I might consider changing my mind on that price point personally.
Gimbal Lock question. Yeah, that's that weird. I don't know if you were online earlier, but there is, there are two questions. Well, two questions come to mind. Gimbal Lock, yes, it comes with this thing that looks like maybe it's from, I don't know. I'm trying to think of Blue Velvet or some movie, that wrap this around your face.
I do like it's black, so you don't forget to take it off.
Yeah, so that goes right on like that, which actually is more convenient than using that weird plastic system that always frustrates me with the other DJI products. It's always been a bugaboo, and you kind of wonder, why don't they just have a little switch that's a lock? But it also does have...
Yeah, I always bought the third-party off-market ones.
Yeah, and you can lock it in flight if you want, like that fixed wing mode. So if you're referring to that, that is an option as well.
Oh, so question, Scott. So you're talking about that fixed wing mode. It was the what did they call it? They had a name for it, and it's a switch. You can do it in the app, right? So that's available in the Fly app.
Yes, I believe I saw it there when I was looking at it today. So I think I saw it as an option somewhere. So quite certain of that. Yeah. And the new app, I'm assuming, must be available now. They generally do it the moment they release a product. So be able to download it and strap on manly cover from Beetle Bailey there. Beetle is Brian is a guy we featured on Drone DJ because he ordered the DJI FPV. He's a trucker. He has his truck wired for sound and his home wired with like a Ring camera. And it was dropped off by a courier. When he opened it up, there was a brick inside. So we helped kind of amplify his story a little bit. And he did get a replacement drone from DJI. So nice to see you, Brian.
Yeah, it's the Indiana Jones joke. You can swap an equal weight. They will never know.
Right. You get the...
I'm curious from the folks who are online what your thoughts are about the price, because again, when we were watching the end of the DJI presentation, people were surprised. Now, there have been leaks and a couple of sites have had some prices. I think we've thrown around some prices on Drone DJ, but if you're on there and you want to just drop and let us know what you think of the price range, again, it's $21.99 for the base Mavic 3, $29.99, let's just say $3,000 for the Fly More combo, $1,200 for the smart controller, which comes with a 1000-nit screen, and $5,000 for the Cine model, which to me is a lot of coin, especially being in Canada because we have to convert that. So,
yeah, and the batteries are $209 each. That's a
lot.
It's not crazy for those batteries, but a 3-pack is over $600.
I'm actually seeing the prices a little lower on DJI website right now. I'm not sure if it's because of the location. So I'm seeing the base price as $20.49 instead of $21.99.
Really?
Yeah. Are you guys seeing $21.99?
I'm seeing $21.49. Sorry, $21.99.
I'm seeing $20.49. That's so
interesting. Why?
It said USD $20.49.
That's because you're in Canada. And even if you're on DJI.com, there are different trade tariffs in the US versus Canada. So it's actually
so you
less
guys are paying
expensive.
the premium.
Yeah, and especially I think with the entity list and the bit of trade, trade wars currently going on, there are some higher tariffs. So so it's less expensive in Canada. You could come
I'm
to
gonna go to
Canada and
Montreal,
order it. Yeah,
get a drone and spend $150 on poutine.
What's the cine drive? What's the cine cost up in Canada?
Cine right now is $46.49.
Whoa.
And the
So
battery is
350.
$199, just below 200.
B&H is about to send a truck up north, buy them a bunch, come down,
Yeah.
sell them.
Like we used to do with the booze.
Yeah.
I and maybe somebody else on the panel has some thoughts on this, but DJI and other companies often don't have the retail price fixed right up until they release the product. And I've always wondered, why is that? You know how much it costs to make,
Right.
how much it costs to ship. You've got a rough idea of what demand is going to be. Are you just waiting to sort of feel and see some prices float out there and gauge public reaction and then make your decision? Seriously, I'm curious. Seth, Ife, does anyone, George, have a clue? Because it does feel at times like they're just sort of like, yeah, well, we're thinking about what we're going to charge for this, but we don't exactly know yet. And it's like, your fixed costs are pretty clear by now. So who knows?
Yeah, but I guess they can mess with the margins quite a bit. Like it also depends like the competition that's out there. I mean, DJI doesn't really have a lot of competition in this area. But yeah.
I also wonder how much of a fluctuation right now with, the supply chain disruption still happening.
That's certainly something to think about. In addition to the supply chain, I think maybe they are also counting on the Cine to be cannibalizing some of their higher end stuff. So they don't want to kind of just give that away for free. You know what I mean? They kind of want to get a little bit more money out of losing those like high end customers to a prosumer type of drone.
It's just silly how close in price the camera that you're probably going to put on an Inspire or a Matrice and the actual, they're $1,000 apart. Like who exactly is this scenario? I really can't figure who this person is. They're not me. I know that much.
One of the things that surprised me a little bit was that this is the controller, which we know from the Air 2S, and I believe the Mini 2 as well. So this is the Mini 2 controller, right? Same thing? I'm pretty sure. Certainly it's the Air 2S controller. And you kind of think, I don't know. I mean, it's not like, oh, you should make a new controller just because you've got this drone. But if it is the exact same controller that is on your least expensive drone, now I know the original Mavic Mini is still out there in some sort of permutation, but if that's the controller that's come with the Mini 2, you sort of expect when you're paying a premium of, whatever the prices we were talking about, $2,200 for a basic drone, you kind of think, well, maybe we could have had some improvement to the controller, even if it's just cosmetic. Yeah, same controller as Mini 2. Yeah, and the Air 2 and the Air 2S. I mean, it's a fine controller, and I like using it, but you just sort of think, this is a significant jump in price for this drone. Maybe there could have been something else.
I actually have a question for the so I guess for the new controller, for the new smart controller, is that the one you have, George, with a Cine one?
Yes.
Okay, how long does the battery last on that?
I had no problem running through it on all 3 batteries.
Because that was my challenge with the smart controller right now with just the regular Mavic 2 Pro. I mean, if I had a really large mission where I have to fly, I've got 6 Mavic 2 Pro batteries. So if I have to fly 4 or 5 in one day, then I'm running out of I have to charge the actual smart controller in the middle. So I wonder with 46-minute flight time per battery, how long is the smart controller gonna last?
I got down to 1 tick left after flying all 3 batteries in back-to-back succession, never even turning off the
That's an
controller.
improvement.
It's just definitely, I was able to churn through all 3. My question back is, because this is the first Pro controller I've ever gotten to use. I've always used the phone ones. We have HDMI out here for the first time. To me,
we use that
is
on
the
the
first time? Is it on the
other
last?
smart controller.
Okay, I'd be curious if you could get a clean feed out of that, and if people might try to circumvent.
Yeah, we did. And actually, when we had events, we set up like a proper large monitor on the side, and we ran the feed. So especially like directors or people don't have to breathe over your shoulder, right?
So it becomes your client monitor out of this controller, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I was hoping
pretty
for
good.
before, and that does make a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised to see people putting recorders so they can get ProRes LT and just an easier record system if they could get clean out. Too much work around, but I would try it probably.
One of the features that they didn't highlight in the press release, but I assumed was going to be in the product, and indeed it is that it has the AirSense detection for crewed aircraft that are equipped with automatic dependent surveillance broadcast transponders, or ADSB. And today, for me, it pinged like 3 or 4 times while I was flying, because I'm in a flight path where small aircraft tend to go for little training runs. And I think it's a super useful feature. We saw it in the Air 2S and the DJI FPV. And it's fantastic. I mean, it gives you a warning before you even hear an approaching aircraft, and suddenly to bring your drone down, or just situational awareness, have a good look around. So I was pleased to see that today, and see it working.
And I say this every time, Scott, when you mention AirSense, and I'm gonna keep on saying this: is if a smaller drone, in the matter of a few $1,000s, can put the ADSB receiver and even considering the transponder, there's no reason all the smaller, single engine little airplanes out there shouldn't have ADSB, because not all of them have ADSB. So if we're doing our part as drone pilots to make aviation safer, then we'd like to see the same from general aviation.
Absolutely. No, I agree 110%. They should all be equipped with transponders, just 100%. We had a question from the 9 to 5 Mac account earlier tonight about the APAS, and I mistakenly looked up Active Track 5.0 on the press release. But since I have it here, I will read what the improvements are on the Active Track, because this is an area where DJI has been behind, and they've wanted to improve clearly. So because we've got all those sensors we were talking about at the beginning, it says the omnidirectional obstacle sensing system also enables more intuitive subject tracking with the upgraded Active Track 5.0. Previous iterations of Active Track enabled the camera to follow a subject as it moved directly toward and away from the drone, while remaining largely stationary, as well as fly alongside a moving subject. Active Track 5.0 allows Mavic 3 to move with the subject as it moves forward, backward, left, right, and diagonally, and fly alongside as well as around a moving subject. In addition, if the subject moves too fast and temporarily goes out of frame, the visual sensors on the aircraft will continue to track and frame the subject intelligently and pick it back up when it reappears. And those of you who've used Active Track on some of the other drones, you'll know how frustrating an experience that can be on occasion. So once again, when we saw the DJI briefing, it actually looked really, really impressive. But that feature was not enabled in the beta app that we had. I tried to track myself and could not get a lock on myself.
I would love to try the master shots when they're enabled, because the quick shots, doesn't matter the drone's capability, quick shots can only store it in 1080p, right? So I'd love to know if master shots means you can actually save in whatever ProRes resolution or RAW that you like to save.
That's a good question, because I think the Air 2S, I remember playing with it and using master shots with it, and it was great. It was terrific. But my recollection is it was 1080p, and you kind of think, oh, come on, come on.
That's always the pros and cons. If you want to shoot the pro resolution, you have to practice your stick time and really be able to capture those shots, especially trying to do droning, right, manually.
Yeah.
And we've got 9 to 5. Wondering if I can trade in my Skydio. Love the autonomy on that thing, especially with the beacon. Yeah. And someone else has pointed out that Billy Kyle, who at one point worked with Drone DJ, had a beta version that worked and it did a good job on the tracking. So maybe he got a better beta version than we did, but certainly I could not get it to lock. George, it sounds like you guys tried as well.
Same thing. Yeah, couldn't touch any master shots. 4K 120 and active track were all not accessible anyway.
Yeah. Is it worth the Cine for a local drone business? I'm going to throw that one to you, Ife.
How local of a drone business? I
Yeah.
guess that's the question. I mean, if you're really good service-based drone business, right? Then if your business is all about drones, I would definitely go and get one. But if you know you're a general, let's say, real estate photographer, event or wedding photographer, then I probably wouldn't go out of my way unless you're serving, Beverly Hills.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, we talked a little bit about it before, like you're already at, if you're going to get the Fly More combo, you need the extra batteries and the extra blades and stuff. You're at 3,000, but you want that, you get a terabyte on the thing, you get the ProRes, and then you get the $1,200 controller. It almost like it's not that big of a skip, not that big of a jump. Yeah, I don't know. It's for me, it's like, I guess, how much do you use it? How much, time does it save? George, we should talk a little bit about the Pro controller. The screen on that was kind of blew us away a little bit, especially like out on a sunny day.
Yeah, in terms of brightness and usability, I was pretty impressed. I generally just don't want to have my phone connecting to every camera I'm using, especially in smaller productions where maybe I'm using a slider and maybe I'm using a compact drone somewhere where I'm able to. It's not the most convenient to close a script or close a shot list I've got on my phone to then open up an app to remote. I love having the screen in the first place. So to me, that makes complete sense to be in the Cine bundle. But then the quality was what was more than the obvious. It was really nice to fly, really sharp. We had just 1080, 60 sounds like, we're maybe spoiled and used to that kind of stuff, but having it in the controller definitely felt really nice and impacted how I wanted to fly. I was like, okay, cool. I'm not like waiting for transmission to look as good as the shot I know it will look when I'm recording. It looks pretty great right now. I feel more confident in the flights I was taking. Screen was, I don't know if it's worth $1,200, but it was definitely nice to use.
I always had to have the regular controller and the smart controller and switch between the two, because on the smart controller, you're limited by the third-party apps you can install on there. Right. And there are some really nice third-party apps, especially if we're using it for, some preliminary survey work before we bring in the precision ones. So I wonder, if I actually have to get both controllers again, and also to see what third-party apps are going to be supporting the new DJI Fly app. Because traditionally on the Mavic 2 Pro, you're working with DJI Go 4, and there are already tons of, pretty mature and developed third-party apps for that. So be nice to see. I know there was one company who tried to do automated mission planning for Mini 2 on the Fly app, and I didn't go very well. So like to see, if that changes with the Mavic 3.
There's a question from Joel. Does it have an adjustable aperture after all? Yes, indeed. F2.8 to F11. And there was another question from 9 to 5 Mac, I believe, about how many stops of dynamic range. 12.8 stops.
They really wanted 13. Oh, they really wanted 13 so bad.
But of course, a lot of people had been anticipating that it would have an adjustable aperture, and that's something you don't get with the Air 2S. So that was to be expected. And I think Seth makes an interesting point when he talks about the price jump between the 3,000 to the 5,000, that if you do factor in that the smart controller is coming in that package, as well as the SSD, whether it's a true slick looking metallic SSD or just a card, we don't know. But Yeah, it's a terabyte of onboard storage. So I think when you look at it that way, if you're already committed to thinking, yeah, I might spend $3,000, but I can't spend 5. Well, maybe you can if that's what you're looking for. There is some extra value for sure by getting that controller. And I'm with you, George. I am so sick of plugging my phone into these things.
Yeah.
I just, and I mean, I had my other camera with me, but I wanted to just be able to take a snapshot of the drone hovering, but of course I can't do it with my camera or with my phone because my phone is tied up controlling the.
But you know what you can do? I actually got the tablet holder, and now, especially now that DJI makes them instead of buying the third-party ones, I really like the DJI tablet holder. So I actually use my iPad Pro, so 10.2 inch on that, and it's really good. So if I have the need where I need to see really big picture, that's
cool.
what I use.
I think I'm so stuck with like small monitors in my head. I'm like, I love like smaller monitors, and but the dream of having an iPad, the new iPad mini on like the smart controller, that sounds like a nice spot to be in most of the time.
And trust me, when you work in Canada in the winter, when it's minus 20 something outside, the smart controller is really handy. You don't have to worry about putting on the phone, setting up your tablet, right?
Yeah.
Everything is ready to go.
This was the first review I didn't have to like think about doing screen records. This was the first time I was like, oh wait, I don't need to screen record my phone to like show the app. Like, just can record the screen like a regular product. This is weird. Okay.
Yeah, speaking of temperatures, Ife once convinced me to go flying when it was minus 25.
We did a cold temperature test.
Yeah,
that was a fun day.
Flew my Inspire briefly and then the Mavic Pro, and I had a fully charged iPad mini with me, and just in the middle of a flight, the battery, one second the battery was showing as being great, the next second it was just a blank screen. So yeah.
Same thing in the hot, actually. If you're using a black color one and directly under the sun, it would overheat really quickly.
Dan Harper saying, try minus 30 to minus 40 in Winnipeg. Well, I'm from Saskatoon originally, so I know those temperatures. But you know what, Dan? It's a dry cold. So
one other thing we haven't talked about, I can't remember if the one you had, Scott, came with the backpack/bag, but actually the bag that it came with was pretty impressive. It was nice, soft material. I don't know if yours came with.
Yeah, I have not yet tried to turn it into a backpack, but this is what the bag looks like, and it really is a step up from any of the other bags that DJI has produced.
It looks like the larger Air 2 bag, because I remember Air 2 had a smaller version of this.
Yeah, it's kind of a canvasy front on the top, which is quite nice. And then it's like canvas coated with rubber on the bottom, because obviously you're going to be setting it on the ground and stuff. And I'm not going to try and do it now, but if you unzip this portion here, you can convert this and make it into a backpack.
I got I'm ready for you, Scott. I got you.
Awesome, man.
I'm in backpack.
Cool. And how did it work as a backpack? Was it convenient? And
it is convenient. It is oddly weighted. It's very like back bottom heavy, because obviously it's the top is just, you can throw a t-shirt or something in there. It's not really like a padded organizable compartment. But in terms of it being able to be a little more discreet, that's what I was super happy about. That it's like, great, it's a drone backpack without it looking very obviously the hard shell bags and that kind of stuff that I don't really want to sling on my back these days.
Well, it looks like somebody just dropped 5.6K, they say, and wish us luck. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Hope it goes well for you. It is, there's no doubt it is a good drone, and flying it was really a pleasure. I look forward to testing it out further, and for the app, perhaps it's even updated today from what we were using earlier today. But yeah, and if you are considering buying it, I'll make the pitch that part of how we keep the lights on and we earn our income is when people purchase through affiliate links. So Seth has a story up, I have a story up, George has a video up. So if you are considering purchasing, please do consider doing that through the links provided in our stories. It doesn't cost you anything more, and it helps us out. So that's my mini pitch for you.
Yeah, we appreciate that for sure. So we're coming up on an hour. Any closing thoughts? I'll just throw it around the room. And we can start with you again, Scott.
I like the drone. I'm not convinced it's worth $5,000 US. That's really what it comes down to. But it does have a lot of great features. And this is like, make no mistake, this is a massive upgrade from the Mavic 2.
Yeah. How about you, George?
Yeah, I've been trying to be positive about it. I mean, the sensor is great. The sensor is such a step up from what I'm used to on. I came from an Air 2 before, so from that, it's a leap ahead to have that 4/3 sensor, and even in how it just renders water and all that stuff. That's the stuff that gives it away to me sometimes. It cuts in with my other footage. I'm like, I know that's a cheaper, lower end drone, and I know you shot that interview on a great camera. This just doesn't work for me. I feel like I can get away with it a little more here. So I'm definitely excited to at least, even in H.264, it's more about the camera than the codec, and that lens is an improvement. So as knowing I can blend it with my other footage, I'm looking forward to being able to do that.
And you, Ife?
Maybe I'm a bit geeky, but I'm really excited about the APAS 5.0 and all the advanced, obstacle avoidance features they mentioned. And I was really excited about the aerodynamics as well of handling wind, especially factoring in the zoom, right? So once you zoom in, that vibration and the movement really magnifies. So I'm really looking forward to, finally hoping that the mine that was sent by DJI apparently a week and a half ago is gonna arrive at some point next week, and we can at least take it out for a spin, and hopefully all the apps will be updated by that time so we can try the new features.
Yeah. So I think just to wrap everything up, it's a great new drone. It's a big step up, but it's also a big price up. DJI doesn't have anything in the $1,000 to $2,000 range anymore. We'll see if that continues to be the case. Maybe they release a Mavic 2 Plus or something to kind of fill that gap. I don't know, but all in all, amazing drone. Like we're excited about. We're gonna have more and more reviews and more scenarios as the software comes out. So keep it locked to DJI or Drone DJ, and we'll cover DJI's all the latest updates. So thanks everybody.
Thanks, Seth.